Today we're going to talk about Xanax. Xanax is one of the most commonly prescribed benzodiazepines. It's used for all kinds of different things. Because it's so commonly used recreationally and via prescription, I thought it was a good topic of discussion, so let's get into it. So what is Xanax? Xanax is the commercial name for alprazolam. This is alprazolam right here. We know it's a benzodiazepine. It is a fast-acting anti-anxiety medication. It's also used for sleep, panic disorders, generalized anxiety, anxiety with depression. From what I understand, it's mostly used for anxiety. I say fast-acting because it starts to act a little less than an hour after you ingest it, which is different than other benzodiazepines that take a little bit longer to kick in. Benzodiazepines induce sedation, muscle relaxation, sleep. They have anti-anxiety properties, anti-seizure properties, and a bunch of other things. An issue with Xanax and other benzodiazepines is the withdrawal. The withdrawal symptoms are very rough. They can be unbearable and pretty horrendous. A lot of this has to do with how long you've taken it. We'll talk about that towards the end, but the withdrawal symptoms are noteworthy because Xanax withdrawal, benzodiazepine withdrawal is pretty terrible to go through. About 16 million were prescribed in 2020. We're also going to talk about fake Xanax. This stuff is everywhere, and I think it's important that you guys have an understanding of what it is and what is in it. As you guys know, I like to talk about the drug family. So benzodiazepines are a family of drugs that we're more familiar with compared to the other ones I've talked about. So we have Xanax, we have Ativan, lorazepam, temazepam, Restoril, clonazepam, Klonopin, diazepam, Valium. One thing I wanted to share. A couple years ago, I was having a bunch of panic attacks, which I ended up in the ER here and there. And one time I went to the ER and they gave me an Ativan. And let me tell you, I was so relaxed and very sedated. It was surprising. I asked the PA who was taking care of me, do you guys give this to people with anxiety? She was like, yes. And in that moment, I realized how serious this stuff can be, because this stuff knocked me out and I can't even imagine taking it on a day-to-day basis for my anxiety. And I really connected with the people who take these drugs consistently to deal with the things they have to go through. So in general, this stuff is very powerful, potent. It has upsides, but it also has a lot of downsides. It's also important to note that Ativan and Klonopin can be used for alcohol withdrawal, and temazepam, amongst the other benzodiazepines, can be used for insomnia. They're kind of used for some of the same things. How does Xanax work? So I've talked about this before. I don't want to get too deep into it. I don't want to lose anyone, so we're not going to talk about all the mechanisms. Like I said, it's less than an hour onset. It peaks at 1 to 2 hours. 84 to 91% is bioavailable. What does that mean? When you consume a drug, it's metabolized, broken down, and only a portion of it becomes available to your body. This drug, most of it's bioavailable, which means it's potent, it's strong acting, and it hits you hard. This drug, along with the other benzos, induce sedation, sleep, anti-anxiety, muscle relaxation, anticonvulsive for seizures. They're used for panic disorder, alcohol withdrawal, insomnia, seizures. I've mentioned this before. There's this receptor that this drug binds to. Alcohol binds to it, benzos, Ambien, a bunch of other drugs. Basically, once it connects, it initiates a response that slows down the signals to our nervous system, resulting in the sedation, the sleep, muscle relaxation, and things like that. Let's talk about the withdrawal symptoms. So number one, with a lot of different drugs, but especially benzodiazepines, your body becomes reliant on the drug. It becomes reliant for sleep, relaxation, anti-anxiety, and overall depression of the central nervous system. If you keep taking it consistently, your body wants it more and more. Now, withdrawal depends on the benzodiazepine. What do I mean by that? Certain benzos last longer in the body. Certain benzos have a shorter stay. The ones that have a shorter stay kick in faster, like Xanax. So because of that, you're likely to feel withdrawal very soon after you take your last pill, 10 to 12 hours. Valium, for example, stays in the body a little bit longer. It's not as quick to have its effects, so you might experience those a few days after you take Valium, but it really depends. Everyone's different. The more fast-acting benzos, you have a more intense and sooner withdrawal. The more slow-acting benzos, you have a slow onset. Withdrawal is generally the same for every benzodiazepine. I got this info from a drug recovery website. I thought it was really interesting. So early withdrawal can be hours to days. Acute withdrawal can be weeks to months. Depends on the person, but it really depends on how long you've taken it. If you haven't taken it for a long time, withdrawal shouldn't last a long time. Now, they're still going to be intense and terrible. If you've taken them for years, it's going to be hell on earth to withdraw because your body's so used to it. You're going to be getting symptoms heavy. What are these symptoms? What happens is you can think of like a dam breaking. You have used this drug to mask symptoms like anxiety. You're not dealing with the actual problem. So when you stop taking it, you're going to get a rebound of pretty much all the things you took the drug for. Anxiety, panic, you're going to have insomnia. You can expect nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, seizures, hallucinations, suicidal thoughts, mood swings, agitation, twitching, weight loss, depression. Everyone's different, but overall, there is an intense feeling of sickness, shaking, sweats. They present themselves differently depending on the person, but either way, it's a terrible, terrible thing to go through. And those of you who have gone through this withdrawal will know exactly what I'm talking about. Xanax, amongst other benzodiazepines, is very heavily used and abused recreationally. Sometimes people might try and find Xanax for stress. They want to experiment with it. Maybe they're depressed and they just want to get away from their life. Because of these things, it's highly abused. Xanax should never be mixed with sedatives, opioids, alcohol, grapefruit juice. Grapefruit juice is interesting. That shouldn't be mixed with almost any drug because of some of its properties. It basically can enhance the effects of certain drugs. But you don't want to take it with these sedatives because you could die. You don't want a sedative on top of a sedative. It's not going to be good for you. You could overdose. Then we have these fake Xanaxes. If you're getting this stuff from the street, I believe the DEA in 1 year captured, millions of pills. Half of them had fentanyl in it. Some of these had U-47-700, which is 7 times stronger than morphine. If you're getting this stuff from the street, you're probably not getting the real thing. Unless you really know how to determine what's on a pill and what it looks like, you might be getting sold fake Xanax. And nowadays, when you're consuming these drugs that are come from the street, they might have fentanyl in them. It only takes 1 pill to die. So it's a lot of risk. And honestly, for me, to get the real thing, doctor. Some people might claim to have a prescription, but you don't know. The issue though, is that if you're addicted, you're gonna do what you need to do to get your substance. And this is where more of a slippery slope comes in because you have a higher risk of dying due to you not knowing what's in what you're taking. This is a really interesting picture. See if you can tell the real from the fake. This, from what I saw on this website, this is real Xanax. This is fake Xanax. Like I said, if you don't know what this stuff looks like, you will not be able to tell. So let's go here. What color is Xanax? Depending on the company, you might have a different form and color. All of these are possible Xanax bars. Now, obviously here it says this is counterfeit, but the issue I'm sure you're seeing is that if it's not prescribed, it's very difficult to determine if you're getting the real thing or not. And this is another dangerous piece to this puzzle. So let's get into the summary and go through what we learned about today. We talked about what Xanax was, an anti-anxiety medication. It's used for sleep. It's a benzodiazepine. It sedates you. It relaxes your muscles. The withdrawal symptoms are very heavy and intense. Millions were prescribed in 2020, attributing to its heavy use and abuse, even though it's prescribed. Then we talked about the family of benzodiazepines. A lot of these drugs we've heard of, and they all do similar things. We talked about how it binds to this special receptor that induces this sedation, sleep, anti-anxiety effects, muscle relaxation. Xanax is used for panic disorders, alcohol withdrawal, insomnia, seizures. It has a whole host of different uses, and it's very, very potent, taking less than an hour to kick in and peaking in 1 to 2 hours. We then spoke about the heavy and terrible withdrawal symptoms: anxiety rebound, nausea, vomiting, seizures, mood swings, agitation. It really depends on how long you've taken it, but regardless, if you're relying on it, it's going to be a terrible experience. We then closed out with the recreational use and abuse. It's a very highly abused substance. It should never be mixed with any sedatives. A lot of fake Xanax has fentanyl in it and other substances. It's also very hard to tell the real from the fake. Now, some people may be able to tell, but if you don't take it often or you're not used to it, you could take one and die. And that is a very real risk. So that's all I got. I hope you guys learned a lot. For those of you who have taken Xanax and have suffered withdrawals or are in the throes of a Xanax addiction, I hope this really helped you understand what's going on. And I just want to mention that you have to be aware, whether it's prescribed or not, you have to be aware of how much you're consuming how often you're consuming it, because the withdrawals are terrible. And sometimes it's easy to abuse it. I think people can think, oh, it's prescribed to me, it's okay. But these substances are powerful, and you really have to watch how you're relying on it. And if you're using it for anxiety and things like that, you got to deal with that. You have to deal with that separately, because a medication's only going to mask the real issues. So thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends, and I'll be back soon with another video.